Well, we have the first, I believe first ever perhaps, question for a U.S. senatorial debate by an Avenger. The Hulk is here with a very green question.
Hi, I'm Mark Ruffalo. Scientists say that a rapid transition to 100% clean, renewable wind, water, and solar power in Florida will create 140,000 jobs, eliminate 3,000 premature air pollution deaths, and over 50,000 illnesses in Florida per year, increase energy independence, reduce terrorism risk, and reduce both direct and social costs of energy. With that in mind, here's a question from Jen in Rhode Island that got thousands of votes.
Do you accept that climate change is the single greatest threat our world faces? And if yes, then will you support or put forth legislation that keeps more fossil fuels in the ground and greenhouse gases out of our atmosphere?
Congressman, climate change. Is it the biggest crisis that mankind faces right now?
Who would you like to start?
Let's start with you, Congressman Grayson.
The answer is yes. I can't think of anything else that could literally destroy the planet other than climate change. You know, we run the risk not just of higher ocean levels or more storms, we run the risk of a runaway greenhouse effect. No one really knows whether that would happen or not. No one knows when it would happen. So we're playing dice with planet Earth. That's very disturbing to me. You know, we have names for things like killing a person, killing a nation. We don't have even a name for what it would mean to kill a whole planet. And that shows you how serious this is. And I've worked very hard to try to avoid this. I'll give you some examples. For 2 years in a row, I passed extensions on conservation efforts in people's homes. This means reduced greenhouse gases. Each year, I've had the government hand out credits of $1.3 billion in a 20% tax credit. And I've done that for 2 years in a row. So a total of $2.6 billion Grayson green energy tax credits have been handed out to people all across the nation, including in Florida, and they've resulted in $13 billion of investment in clean energy. In addition to that, I passed an amendment a few months ago that helps to keep our rivers, our estuaries clean, with a 9% increase in funding for that. I've been there. I've been fighting this battle and making sure that my children and my grandchildren inherit a good green earth.
Congressman Jolly.
The challenges from climate change are real. But is climate change the greatest threat to our nation, as Alan just said? No. The greatest threat to our nation are agents of terror like the guy we saw in San Bernardino who killed 14 people in the name of jihad. The greatest threat we face as a nation is a nuclear-armed Iran who has said they wish to destroy the United States. The greatest threat we face as a nation are people who wish to destroy us tomorrow. That's the threat we have to address right now. That's the immediate address. When the President of the United States stood before a State of the Union address and said the greatest threat we face is climate change, he's wrong. The greatest threat we face are people who want to destroy the United States of America tomorrow. And that's what we need to address. Now let's get to the science. What do we do about climate change? Because let's have a contest of ideas over solutions. What we need to do is continue to invest in tax incentives for clean energy, for renewables, for fuels, for wind, for solar, you name it. Let's continue to advance research in these areas, which we've done in Congress. Continue to add more money to a program that invests in research in these areas. But what will not work is policies of this president, like the Clean Power Plan, that risk putting 300 people in Putnam County out of business and increasing utility costs for 1.6 million people across the state. What won't work is the President's Waters of the United States regulation that's going to cost Pinellas County, just one county, between $400 million and $2.5 billion. It will cost them $31 million to fix a single ditch. What won't work is a blended fuel standard that industry can't meet and the President has to continue to delay it. A renewable fuel standard that continues to increase cost to industry. The largest beer distributor in the state of Florida, Great Bay, just went to an all-solar roof. And you know why they did it? Because the return on investment is finally in a 5-year window and it makes economic sense. And so they're able to grow their business, grow employment, grow jobs, while still contributing to a cleaner environment. That's the transition we need. 10 years ago, if there was a regulation that said, Great Bay, you have to go to an all-solar roof, they probably would have had to lay off their workforce because the cost was out of reach. We can do this. We can solve climate challenges through incentives and research, not through mandates that can't be met.
I think as Americans, we're all certainly for cheaper beer. However, and while I agree with that entirely, I myself am not a climate scientist. I'm a journalist. And a very reputable journalistic magazine, National Geographic, has a graph, a chart. I think we can put it over here on the screen. This is what they have published as a future outline of the state of Florida in year 2100, sorry. This is if the water line of the ocean rises by 5 feet. This is what is projected. My question to both of you is that a realistic view of what could potentially happen to the state that you want to be one of the 2 senators for?
So I'm not one in my party that's going to argue with the science. I'd rather argue about where the solutions are because I think the president's wrong. You know, one of the ways we need to address that, and the mayor of Miami Beach, a Democrat from Miami Beach, is doing it today, is what are our municipal governments doing to underground utilities, to raise elevation of roads, to eventually protect life, safety, and property. There are a lot of things that need to be done to deal with what the scientists are saying is coming. I'm happy to have that debate over where the solutions are. I'll accept the science. Let's Alan and I have a debate over the solutions because very respectfully, and I know this, we have very different disagreement on the solutions.
Well, I want to point out, and this is completely fortuitous, that the map that you just showed is something that was at my website when I declared for Congress in 2006. I wanted people to see what this glorious state would look like once the ice caps melt and once the sea level rises and once Miami is under 50 feet of water. You're going to have a lot of trouble putting it up on stilts if you're talking about 50 feet of water. The only good part of that is that Rush Limbaugh's house is right on the coast, so his house goes first. But leaving that aside, it's all tragedy, and it's avoidable tragedy. And you know what? In the last 8 years, the president has been pretty much the only person who's actually done anything about it. The president's Clean Power Plan, which is now attempting to be tied up in the courts by the other side, the president's Clean Power Plan actually is a means to cut our carbon emissions, our carbon pollution, substantially. And with regard to the auto emissions, who was it who actually increased the corporate average fuel economy standards in this country? It wasn't the House of Representatives, it wasn't the Senate, it wasn't the Republicans or even the Democrats, it was the President of the United States. And now with the President's Paris Climate Agreement, which I support, and I've told the President I support it, I think we actually see a way forward. Look, I voted in favor of the so-called cap and trade bill in my first term. I was punished for it. The arch opponents of the cap and trade bill, the Koch brothers, then spent $4 million to defeat me the following year. I could live with that. I think the planet's a lot more important than that.